All right. I am thrilled to introduce you today to Anthony and Staci LoCascio. Welcome.
Hello.
Hi, how are you today?
Oh, I'm so good. How's your Wednesday morning starting?
Oh, it's
Really
great.
good.
We're
Yeah.
flying this weekend to go teach, so I am making the muffins, which are beeping right now.
Oh, go get your muffins.
Oh
I
yes,
love it.
these
I'm
are the
not
things
even
that
gonna.
we do in the morning. We bake all the things in the morning.
And then we teach in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And it's perfect. We're not even going to edit that out. I love that. That just
I
happened.
love it. I love it.
Real life, man.
Yeah.
We're going to talk today about mindset, success, accountability, everything that I am all about. And I'm so excited. So, before we get going on all of that, it would really help our listeners to have a deeper understanding of what you two are all about. So, I will shush and you go.
Well, we're both professional entertainers. That's been our career for 20-something years. We started when we were kids.
Yeah.
We made it to professional shows. Staci was part of Sesame Street Live, and I was part of Tap Dogs. In addition to that, we've done some other things. We've produced our own shows with our company, #Tap Life Company. And during our career, we both experienced something where health was making it difficult for us to continue on the path we were on. So we both discovered on our own, food is a prescription, really. We were prescribed prescription drugs and they weren't working. We were feeling more of the side effects than the benefits. But then we discovered that we could also manage these health issues or calm them or support them with food. And we both did that. And eventually, years later, COVID came around. We were stuck at home. We couldn't go out and entertain live audiences. We were spending some time on the book. And on the book, we found some groups that we spent a lot of time in that were gluten-free related. And we found ourselves as dance teachers wanting to help and love others and care for others. And there was a lot of people who were describing the fact that they just found out they had to change their diet, which is something very fundamental, and they were in a bad place, or they were struggling, or they didn't know what to do. And we started addressing it with the same answers all the time about mindset and accountability and supporting yourself, which led us to write a book. And since then, we've been finding podcasts and places that, alert their listeners to ways to make them to be the best versions of themselves by helping them instead of telling them what to do. And we found you, and today we're talking with you.
I love it. Can you please tell us the title of your book?
It is called Food as a Prescription. And the whole title is, let me get this right, a handbook for those currently on or prescribed a gluten-free, soy-free, corn-free, and or dairy-free diet.
Okay, so interesting. Was part of that where you started to find some reprieve and success? Like, why so specific?
For 20 years, personally, I was internally bleeding, and not one doctor could figure out why. And then I met my wife, Staci, who was already utilizing her food as a prescription, right? Because I want to drill it home to remind people that maybe prescription drugs aren't always the answer. It doesn't mean every bit of Western medicine isn't helpful or useful. You're breaking arm, you said it. But for both of us, we needed nutrition to be on the forefront of what was going to help us. And typically when you see a Western medicine doctor, that's not their go-to. So we needed to make that our go-to.
I don't want to interrupt you, but I'm going to.
No, please. No, go, please. You got to interrupt me, otherwise I don't shut up.
Oh, I love it. Please keep going. But so not only do it's not their go-to, but have you come against any barriers as far as people like doctors in your corner not totally believing in what you're trying? Have you had any of that pushback?
Yeah. We try to look for functional medicine doctors or chiropractors because they tend to be a little bit more open-minded. And that's kind of where they tend to go anyway, just as doctors themselves. So those are the kind of practitioners that we kind of lean towards now. Thankfully, my very first rheumatologist was not from this country. She was from Romania.
Different perspective.
Yeah. And so she was actually the first one to say to me, I think you should try the blood type diet. And that's, even though she put me on specific Western medications, she said, you can use this as a lifetime solution. You don't want to use this as a lifetime solution. Go this way.
I had a pretty interesting, this goes back like my whole life. Being a dancer has presented certain challenges to me
As a male.
Especially from the other guys, right? Which was always weird to me because they were hanging out playing sports with all the other dudes. I was in dance class with
Hanging out with all
the girls. So I don't know how that measures up. But at one
Jealousy.
point, when I first discovered I was internally bleeding, I was on the road and far away from home, and I just signed a long contract. It was very scary. I didn't know what to do. I was embarrassed because, who wants to talk about knowing that you're internally bleeding because of a bowel movement? But I eventually came clean to my company manager. She set me up with a doctor's appointment in the Midwest, and the doctor checked me out. And after he checked me out, instead of suggesting that maybe something was really seriously wrong or I was dealing with something upsetting, he said, well, let's go to my office. We went to his office, and his suggestion was that I was a male dancer who was on the road away from his family for the first time. I couldn't come to terms and accept the fact that I might be gay, having anal sex, and that's what was causing my discomfort and bleeding. It's like, and honestly, people talk about those times when they just kind of black out in life and this thing's happening to them and they really can't recall the whole thing. That was one of those moments for me because I couldn't believe that this was where I ended up after all these years of going through it all, getting to high school, my friends seeing me actually date other women so I could squash that idea. And not that there's anything wrong with it. There's not. A lot of my friends are part of the LBTGQ by 3 triple whatever, all the things community.
The alphabet community.
But it was just really odd to have a doctor make that suggestion instead of, something's wrong, let's try to help you. Yeah. No, it was, if something in your life choices is causing this, not something medical. I was like, man, I guess that's just going to follow me around.
Yeah, interesting. Were you just sitting there with kind of jaw dropped open? Like, where do I even go with this?
Not to feel the anxiety in my chest again, because I really have never been able to describe that moment because, like I said, it felt like a blackout moment.
You hear that and you kind of don't hear anything else. Yeah. It just kind of fuzzes over. And then you go into your own thoughts, like, I can't believe this guy is really telling me this right now. And the guy's still like talking, but all you hear is like the Charlie Brown.
That's a very good way to describe it.
Yes. Do you know what this kind of reminds me of? I hope I do this justice the way I'm about to say this, but this happens to everyone in all different sorts of ways. It can be the person who's overweight that they're sitting across from somebody who there's this bias, assumes that they're eating a certain way or assumes that they're doing something like you're saying, life choice that's causing this without just getting this deeper understanding of the person asking the questions and not projecting our thoughts on them. So I appreciate you bringing that up because I think that the listeners could be going, I've had that experience. It looked different, but I sat there going, I can't believe you just said that to me. Thanks for bringing up that story.
I was on prednisone for a while. So that was like the solution for me until I was able to get my diet under control, as far as what foods I could have and what I couldn't have. Prednisone makes you puffy and it makes you retain weight. Really, it doesn't promote weight loss or healthy body system function.
Yeah,
we'll put it that way. And I'm a massage therapist as well. And I happened to be a massage therapist at this moment at a gym. And I was still dancing, I was teaching, I was doing everything. And I was talking to, I think, a coworker, and a gym patron was standing there and basically was looking at me like, you're overweight. How can you be talking about these things, these exercises that that do this or do that and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, dude, you have no idea what is happening, why I look like this, and the fact that I have to take this medication that makes me look like this in order to live a decent life. Yeah, a decent life at this point. At that point, that was really what was helping me be pain-free. It just happened that weight gain was a side effect.
Right. So makes us all want to wear a sign around our neck that says this explains this for a minute. Yeah. So that Oh, thank you. That's a good example too. Yes. How should our listeners, I'm coming back to the book for a second. How do they use it? What was your we need to write this book because we want this out of it?
Well, we didn't want it to be big. So it's not very big.
Very little.
We wanted it to be really
bendy,
focused.
Like handbook.
That's why we call it a handbook. And basically what I was saying was if you were given a diagnosis to change something as fundamental as your diet one morning, you could pick up this book, read it at lunch, and feel better by the time you rest your head down that night.
Yeah.
It addresses mindset. If you think you can, you can. If you think you can't, you can't.
Mm-hmm.
It addresses, I can't eat this, I can't eat that. Instead, we talk about once you're told what you can't eat, sit down and make a list of the things you can eat.
Mm-hmm.
And that becomes your new grocery list. A lot of people say, I'm never going to be able to go out to eat again. So we have a chapter dedicated to how do you go out successfully to eat?
Or
How do you go to a wedding?
parties.
How do you go to a party?
Especially with holidays coming up.
Yeah,
you
we
know?
talk about this thing. We address making a food card, which is basically like a business card, but it's got your name on it and what you're allergic to. So you could hand it to a server. So, before you're asking about people not believing, we've heard of family members slipping gluten into other family members' food to prove that you can eat it because it's not an instant reaction like a peanut or like a shellfish with an EpiPen. It's a different type of reaction. So people can't see it. We also address how to carry around a food bag because so many times people find that they can't have food wherever they are. But if you're carrying food, if you get into the habit of carrying a little bit of food around with you everywhere you go, you'll always have a little something to sustain you and you'll never be left as the third wheel who can't eat.
You can't just go into a convenience store and grab some chips, So you need to have snacks with you so that if you get a little bit peckish.
We also talk about your new habit, which is going to be read everything. Just the act of turning things around and reading them drastically changes your relationship to what you're putting in your body.
Yeah.
We also talk about how it's not just food. It could be toothpaste. It could be shampoo. It could be
soap, any kind of soap.
It could be a candle.
Yeah.
We you don't do well around soy. So many candles are made from soy. We also put a food diary in the book so that you could use it to record what you're eating and how it makes you feel the next day. In addition, one of my favorite things is, besides tips and tricks, is we have recipes in the back. We give you our flour mix, so you could just replace a 1-to-1 gluten-free flour and bake your favorite things. We give you a breakfast, so you could make your pancakes and waffles. We give you a dressing. We give you a recipe for a lemon butter dish for your chicken, and you could also put shrimp. So we give you a well-rounded way to feel supported. And we tell you the brands we use. We don't hold that information back. So it's not, you don't have to spend money making mistakes or time making mistakes like we did, because that can be very frustrating. And we don't want you to have a frustrating experience. We want you to have a positive experience. And it's all wrapped around the idea that it's delicious, because if it's not delicious, you're not going to eat it. And so many things are not delicious. That's a really, really a lot of information put into 102 pages.
Yeah. I think that it was so well said, though, and I can summarize with you because, one, food sensitivity reactions, to your point, are not instantaneous, and sometimes it's not even that next day, it's 2 to 3 days later. Yeah. So being able to look back, success leaves clues, that you can go, and it's a research project. Once you start to realize that you have something like that, now we got to figure it out. And it's not an easy. So you've taken some of the legwork out of this. And again, even if we're just talking food and the enjoyable foods, that's where I think a lot of my clients, other people struggle, because all it takes is 5 expensive items that you purchase that you end up not liking to be like, I'm done with this. Yeah. Done. It's money. It's gross. No, where you're going, hang on a minute. Yeah. Start with these 5. We promise these, and then we'll help you find the others. But I love this. It's so good. Yes.
And on the tip of accountability, if you have a food diary, you could be accountable to what you've eaten in the past few days without saying, well, I don't remember. Yeah.
Right. You're you're rippling into other good habits without having to list them all out.
Exactly.
I like to Mr. Miyagi things. I like to focus on this right here, when then you find out, it also applies to all these things. I had no idea.
Oh, that's so good.
From being a dance teacher, especially a tap dance teacher, because tap is hard and you need to really get good technique. So if you focus on good techniques, then the dancing comes easier, and then you love it and you enjoy it because you get good at it. If this is a good experience, you'll love it. You'll enjoy it. You'll be able to help yourself. If this is a bad experience, you'll give up on it before you even start.
100%. Can I steal Mr. Miyagi things?
Yes, of course. Listen, this is about sharing. Tap dancers talk about how they steal each other's steps, but the truth of the matter is, it's about, oh, I like that too, and I want to share that with the world as well. And if I'm really good at sharing it, I'll even remember to mention your name or give you credit for it and say, I had this good experience with this person, and now I'm getting to share it with you, and that brings the whole experience full circle.
Yes, I totally agree. We can all, if we work together, we can change the next generation, or we can, yes, brighten the artistic world. So I want to make sure that our listeners hear your hope stories out of this. And let's start back with Staci. Let's start with you again. Because anybody who's going, yes, I have rheumatoid arthritis and I've been on the prednisone. I'm not feeling hopeful. Again, tell us, at what point did you start feeling reprieve from food choices, and how drastic did that have to be for you?
Honestly,
that's a great question.
I went through a couple of starts, right? So when I first started this, that was my rheumatologist telling me go with the blood type diet, right? But still some of the things were affecting me. And anyway, some of the things on the blood type diet. So it wasn't 100% for me. And a friend that I was doing theater with at the time said, I have a nutritionist that you need to see. So I went to her. She did what's called an EAV screening. And it's it does measure your energy, but it's through a computer, and you hold a metal node in one hand, and she puts it to other meridian points on your other hand. With certain foods, and it's a very trained practice. So she's not just doing it willy-nilly, she knows what she's doing. And it basically spat out this whole thing of what vitamins I was deficient in, what foods I could have, how many of the macronutrients and things that I should have every day, and how it should be split out, all kinds of things that you wouldn't even understand that. Oh my gosh, yes, okay, I'm deficient in vitamin D. Great. Now I need this much of that vitamin to make my body function properly, in addition to all of these other foods, eliminating these foods, having these foods. And there was a sliding scale of not good, moderate, good. So you could even factor in, okay, well, this one's a moderate, so I'm going to have that one every now and then. I'm not going to have it all the time, but I can have it here and there. I really feel once I started that particular roadmap thing for myself, that's really where it turned the corner for me. I mean, I could tell almost immediately, even when I started the blood type diet, but that EAV screening was really it. And it just kind of sent it into high gear at that point. And I was also tapering down off of the prednisone. So there was a little bit of an overlap there. So once I was able to show my rheumatologist, hey, I'm doing this thing over here, she said, okay, well, we're going to start to taper down your prednisone now that you have this under control. And, so that's what we did. And it was a long process, that tapering down, man, because I was on 20 milligrams a day. And that is not anything to mess with.
So let's just make sure everybody understands this. Once you saw a clear picture of what you needed, that means supplements were happening for you, and this tapering down off vitamins and using supplements, as well as pairing with foods.
And I did. She told me to change my shampoo. She told me to change my soap. So I started changing all of those things as well.
What were some of the things that were in shampoos and your soap that were bothering you?
It's just a lot of chemicals. And I think a lot of times our bodies, your skin is your largest organ. So anything that you're going to absorb through your skin is going to affect all of your body systems. And
I remember you wanted less ingredients.
Yeah, less ingredients. And just, I don't even know.
More natural.
So ones that you can pronounce more or less. there's a lot of ingredients now that are even okay, but maybe you can't pronounce them. But just take out your phone when you're at the store and Google search something. If you don't know it, search it. Look at what the derivatives are, where it comes from. If it comes from somewhere where you're allergic to it, don't buy it.
I want to add something to that specific point. We were watching The Voice last night, and I don't watch a lot of popular television, but I do like things that are entertaining. I'm an entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
And
Ariana
Grande had said that she was in a live production of a show and she was struggling in Hairspray with her voice, which you wouldn't expect to hear from someone like that because she's a seasoned performer. She started as a kid. She discovered the chewing gum that she was constantly had in her mouth for her character had aspartame in it. And
it was sugar-free.
It was sugar-free. So the aspartame was giving her trouble with her singing. Who would have thought?
So interesting.
But she was able to identify that and remove it.
I love that you bring up this point because I think that the whole identification process is what's really overwhelming for a lot of people.
It is. Everyone suggests you do an elimination diet. And I think that I didn't want to do that. I was like completely overwhelmed by that thought. Like, oh my God, what am I going to eat? And I have to do this 2 weeks at a time. Holy crap, I'm not going to be able to do this, you know? And so once I got the test and I got the things,
the test.
that was key for me personally. Now, some people can do the elimination diet and be fine. And kudos to them because I can't really do it.
Well, the interesting thing is when we talk about, I think you said hope story. Is that how you described it?
Yeah.
I did.
When I think about that for myself, I think about the first thing that really changed for me was I was on a lot of prescriptions for bipolar ADHD, but I was in California at the time. And it was the first time I wanted to come off those prescriptions. And one of the things, they were having negative side effects to me. And one of the first things I did with food was I took out one item, high fructose corn syrup, because I felt like it was contributing me being manic. And once I took that out, I saw a difference. But I also discovered how many things I was eating that had that in it, all the way to my cough syrup and my cough drops. And I was like, why is that in cough syrup and cough drops? So that was one big moment that really woke me up. The next big moment that I think woke me up was years later when I met Staci, and she had suggested me just take out gluten and dairy and see what happens for a couple of months. I did that on the road for one summer because every summer we travel on the road. This is our last summer doing it, but every summer we travel on the road teaching. And I discovered that when I took out gluten and dairy, not only did I lose 30 pounds in in like 2 months, but my internal bleeding almost was lessening and almost stopping at certain times. And I was like, well, this is certainly something that I need to investigate. When we came home was the third time that I really feel like I had a massive realization. My chiropractor, who's also a nutritionist, Dr. Rob, who wrote the foreword in the book, Dr. Rob suggested that now that he's seen my dedication, that I should take a nutrition response test, which is similar in an EAV screening because it kind of like helps you skip the elimination diet process. Okay. Which is huge because it takes 2 weeks to 6 months of guessing out. And it really helps you focus on just do this right now and see if there's a big change in your life. And that's what I did. I took this nutrition response test and I discovered what my body likes and what my body doesn't like, which helped me create my grocery list of do's and don'ts. And I discovered that while I could put dairy back in, which I don't eat a lot of dairy, I'm Italian, eat the hard Italian cheeses and probably mozzarella, right? Or for those that are not Italian, mozzarella. I don't know if I said that right for my non-Italian friend, but for my Italian friend, it's mozzarella. Anyway.
We can't understand you.
Yeah, I know. So I made that change, and that's when I was able to stop bleeding internally most often. Now I'm still using my food diary, and I do eat out of the home sometimes, and there is some relapses on occasion, but when I'm solid and I'm eating this way, man, it's so much better than taking drugs or a doctor telling me they want to cut a piece of my intestine out.
It also does incorporate supplements.
Yes, I always forget. It also incorporates supplements, which is shout out to, what do we use, Standard Process?
Yeah.
Because they're high quality supplements, and I don't like get any money or anything, but I just, again, I like to tell people brand names
Better
so that
quality.
they have the best possible experience. It's not a secret. I don't need you to pay me $10 a month for me to tell you those things, like some Patreon thing, which we may do at some point so people can
Sure.
cook with us every day. But we like telling people the brands because it helps ensure that they're going to have a good process that doesn't waste time and money.
Let's talk about the whole, we keep bringing up how elimination diet is a struggle. And I'm on board with this. I'm a dietitian and I feel like it is something that we offer as it's offered because it's cheap, right? And sometimes when we start going down the road,
and it works.
It's useful.
It's very useful. It works.
Yes, but I'm on your page and I actually want your opinion on this because it is money to get, anytime we go the holistic integrative route, it's money. It's well invested money, but it's money. And then food sensitivity testing comes in the same line of what you both are talking about. It gives a visual, and we have medical doctors who, and I've asked multiple times, like, why are you not a believer? And it always comes down to it's not evidence-based science yet. It is not backed by enough of studies, research, all of that. But what I keep coming back to, and I want our listeners to hear today, is it is, in fact, it's evidence of something, right? So even if it shoots us back a false negative, let's say it said that you're dairy intolerant, but you're really not. At least it gives you an avenue to try. And if it didn't make any difference to you, if that dairy didn't do anything, then you can put it back in. Yeah. But at least it gives you that view of like this is where I'm going to start. And then we'll go from there versus take everything out, add things back in one at a time. Because half the time, like, and I think you two could probably say this, you're pretty stressed at that point that when you need to do an elimination diet, it's probably because you feel pretty crappy. And
very, very challenging. I think an elimination diet is really, really helpful in a lot of ways, but it's also a very big ask.
Yeah.
Like you said, people are already in strife. And to ask them to potentially put them in a place where they have to go further into more strife or another stressor makes them again say no before they begin, which is, like we spoke about earlier, mindset, which is why we took the approach we took when we compiled the information and chose how we wanted people to take it in. And it's really comes from, we really try to come from a place of support and understanding and empowerment and enlightenment, rather than a place from, there's only one way to do it. You have to do it this way. If you don't do it this way and you don't follow these steps, you may not find it. Right. Because that's a big ask. And I think that's kind of what an elimination diet appears to be to a person who's being asked to do that. So while it's a really good, helpful thing, it was the best thing we had for a long time. But now with things like screenings that could pinpoint what can and can't work for someone, like you said, gives them a more definitive answer that feels real, tangible, and a focused direction. I think for elimination diet, it doesn't really feel like a focused direction. We're not really sure, so we're going to take out everything and then slowly put it back, and people don't have the patience for that.
It's a lot.
It's a lot to do. Maybe if it was the only thing they had to do, that would be fine. But they have to work. They have to take care of maybe family members. They have a long list of other things that are going on in their life. So the elimination diet becomes another harrowing thing on the list. These tests become, do these things now, and within a couple of days, you're going to start to feel better. And within 2 weeks, you're going to notice a big difference that's going to encourage you to continue on.
I have to interject one thing, because something that you said sparked an idea in me. And I have to say that food was the original prescription. At some point in our human history, we developed prescription medication. Yeah. And when you're talking about there's not enough research, I'm going to say there actually is, because
but not the
that
AMA.
was life before.
Meds.
And
right.
Doctors used to prescribe herbs. Doctors used to prescribe foods, so
Cannabis.
I'm going to refute that statement. And I think that you should tell them the same thing when they say that to you.
I have had more and more guests come on, and this is what I'm loving, of integrative docs who jumped ship from their practice into the integrative world because they get frustrated that they kind of get put in this box of needing to or having to prescribe medication where it's more, right? And there's a really innocent factor to this too, because I was like, so why aren't we asked to draw more labs, like to do more? Because our regular doctor can ask for metal screening and they can request all of what these integrative docs are doing, but it comes down to not really truly understanding how to read it. And so it seems unethical or like you're wasting of time or resources if you order it and don't know what to do with it. Yeah. And that's where I see this like beautiful combining of holistic and Western medicine. Because to your point, Anthony, like we do still need Western medicine. So it's, like there's always this like, whoa, we're too far this way or we're too far this way. And like, how do we get to this nice balance of first starting with food, first starting with some supplements before we dive into meds? And meds are it feels like the easy route, but they're not, like to your point of side effects.
They mask the issue. They don't get down to the bottom of it and help correct the issue.
Or they cause another one.
Pharmaceutical companies want to create customers. They don't want to create happy people because healthy people don't
come back,
spend money with them.
Yeah. So I have a question because I feel like you two are this beautiful mix. You live together, you support each other, and you both understand the importance of this because you both need it in your own ways. What is your talk with those, whether it's clients, family members, who a lot of people don't have that kind of support in their household? You started to bring that up already, but like, how do you counsel those individuals on hang in there?
Honestly, not to sound like a broken record, but you need a guide. That's why we created this book. So that guide also does things like tell you there are Facebook groups, there are Twitter, there are accounts, there are TikTok groups. You had mentioned the idea of universe earlier, and I really feel like the universe we create around us is the experience we will have in life. So if you don't have support from your family members, there are other people who are having similar life experience as you are. And if those life experiences are troublesome, you could find those other people, bond with them, or find them, see them, realize there's other people like you out there, which then becomes a supportive group or your own way of creating a support system. So maybe the answer isn't always within your family, because people in your family, if they're not experiencing the same thing you're experiencing, they can't understand it. We're lucky because in my family didn't understand, but they asked questions.
But they embraced it.
And they embraced it. And they made some mistakes along the way. Yeah. Not because they were being vindictive or mean or not, but because they don't understand. They're not living that. So from our point of view, we also need to help those people understand and educate them a little bit without pointing a finger and shaming and telling them. Right. Conversations will help you learn how to support yourself. Support groups will help you support yourself. So if you're not getting the support within a group, then you need to find that support outside of that group, even if that group is your family.
And I think that also brings in the food bag again. If your family's not supporting and you have to go over for a family dinner, bring your own stuff so that you don't get sick. Don't sacrifice getting sick to please someone else.
That's right. Even if you have to sit down at a restaurant and get up and walk out, if you don't feel like you're going to get safe food. You just said something that made me laugh, and I want to say, along the lines of things that are delicious. It was funny because I have a lot of people that love the way I cook. I'm Italian. I grew up in a kitchen. And a lot of my friends were like, oh, no, does that mean you're going to make gluten-free things now? We're not going to like them. I said, listen, you can eat or not eat whatever I make. That's up to you. Bring your own things. That's fine. And they slowly started tasting. I make chocolate cake. Oh, you can't make gluten-free chocolate cake. Okay, no problem. And then we'd be eating it, and we're like, oh, it's so good. And they were like, can I have a little bit? I'm like, yes. And then they taste it, and they're like, whoa. Oh, my God, this is gluten-free. How did you do that? Again, delicious. It's got to be delicious. So it was an interesting journey watching friends of ours who loved my food stop eating my food and then start eating and then start eating it again and then request it. And that's what happened with my family for Thanksgiving. We made mashed potatoes. They tried the mashed potatoes. They were like, wait a minute, those
Can you make the mashed potatoes
Can you
every
make them for the
year?
whole year? So what we find is often you start cooking for your family, or you become the one who has to always pick the restaurant, but you're going to have a good experience, and you're safe if you pick the restaurant.
Yes, yes. And you're pulling those people that you love along your health journey. So people around you are accidentally benefiting.
Right.
You're Miyagiing your family members, and they don't know you're Miyagiing them.
You are. My mom went vegan because she wanted to bring her cholesterol numbers down. And again, dietitian in me knew she already worked out, had family history of cholesterol, and she ate super healthy. I was like, Mom, I love you, and do it if you want to do it, but it's like you're going overboard. Yeah. Lo and behold, like foot and mouth, she brought her numbers down. She's not on medication. And through her journey of veganism, like she's gotten super into, she has a food blog out there. Same thing that you two are doing as far as like, you can do it fun and yummy. And now a lot of things in my refrigerator are vegan, and not because I have to be, but just because I cook her recipes and I like it. And they're so good.
And you want her to be able to eat when she comes to your house too.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I do have her cook. I do take a little bit of advantage of her.
That's another thing. We're talking about cooking. And if you're starting this journey, you might want to come to terms with, you might have to get a new set of pots and pans and things in your house, and even cooking utensils that you cannot sanitize in a dishwasher. Because there can remain previous food particles, even if you've scrubbed them. It's not always 100% necessary, but if you're changing this and you're still feeling a little wonky,
and you can't find
that's
what
where
the issue is,
I would suggest
that's
to
one of the
look
places.
next.
Yeah. Like some people don't realize they have a cutting board forever, and that cutting board might be porous or it might be wood. So yes, that's a good point.
I love that information. Yes. New staples of cookware as well as ingredients that are existing in the house. Okay. I know people are going to want to know this. Would you both consider yourself like recovered maintenance phase of what you started out to cure in the first place?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Life is very different now. Very, very different now. I lost 35 pounds. I could tap dance comfortably again. I had a finger that was locking up on me, and not even thinking that the connection. I stopped the gluten. They all work. Not locking up anymore. Look at that. Look at this. Look at me.
You reduce the inflammation in your body. That's all.
Yeah, reduce the inflammation. So yes, big difference. Big difference.
Yeah. And again, you're living, Staci, with arthritis, but it is
Hashimoto's and C. oncovasculitis. So that's where my small blood vessels get inflamed.
And I think the arthritis thing comes up a lot because that's one of those things I was diagnosed with. Oh yeah, it's just getting arthritis. But then I took out the gluten and they work.
Well, a lot of autoimmune issues point to a joint pain symptom. But that's because of inflammation. And once you eliminate the inflammation in your body, that joint pain goes away. Of course, as you get older, it's, going to be a little bit more difficult to get rid of that joint pain, and it's going to increase. But the more you can do on the outside of what you put into your body to combat that, the better off you're going to be.
Yeah,
tomatoes.
I love that.
Tomatoes are another one. I just wanted, when you said inflammation.
Tomatoes.
Tomatoes will cause inflammation in the body as well. There's a football player who hasn't eaten tomatoes in forever.
15 years, 20 years, something like that.
Because he knows that they add inflammation. Bomb Tatey or something like that?
I was just going to say, and everybody it's their own individual journey, just like everything. So like what affects one person sometimes doesn't another. And that's where that's
another huge one in Western medicine. We treat everybody the same instead of as, everybody has a different body. We all have a different fingerprint. We all need a different way of caring for ourselves.
Different DNA. I will say one point, and maybe this will trigger something for someone. When I got my results from my EAV screening, I have a friend who's a data analyst, and she was just looking at it for curiosity about herself. But once she looked at it, she said, all the foods that you can have are ones that your ancestors ate. When I was like,
whoa,
what? Are you
that makes
joking
sense
right now? So like tropical fruits were off my list. I mean, clearly I don't come from the tropics. So it was very eye-opening in that respect, where it's like, oh wow, at least that's a place maybe to start for some people and go, I'm from whatever, right? I'm going to eat mostly those foods that are from that region or from that place.
Culture.
And that culture. Yeah.
Yeah, that somebody could start there without having any other testing done and just see if it makes, that's interesting.
Sure.
Okay, I don't want to wrap up, but as we do start to wrap up, where can our members, our community find you?
Oh, we have a website. It's the same title as the book, foodasaprescription.com. And the book is everywhere. So you could get it as an ebook. You could get it on the Amazon, the Barnes and the Nobles, the Goodreads, all the places. And we do have an ISBN number. So if you want to look up the ISBN number, go to your local bookstore. If you're a mom and pop kind of person, you could give them the ISBN number and they could order the book to wherever you are, anywhere in the world. And then you could buy it from your local bookstore.
Nice. Okay. And I always ask my interviewed guests this: if you could wrap your arms around our listeners and send them out with one last piece of advice that you hope that they hear from you, what would that be?
Be your own advocate. If you don't like what the person across from you is saying or doing, including a doctor, you don't have to fight with them. You don't have to argue with them. You could still learn from them. But that's why we have the expression, get a second opinion.
Yeah. Trust your gut.
Trust your gut. If it doesn't feel right, literally your gut, then it's okay to walk out and say, just thank you very much. You don't have to be mean or I don't believe it, but just thank you for the information. Have a very nice day. And then go to the next part of your journey. If the journey doesn't end with someone who doesn't hear you or can understand where you're coming from, that just puts you further on the path of your journey of discovery about yourself and what you need to be an advocate for yourself.
I would say it's something that you mentioned before, which is do your own research. No one else is going to be able to describe you.
Yeah, nobody knows you how you know you.
And if you're feeling a certain way, it goes back to trust your gut, do the research, because I promise you, you will find the answers.
Both. So good. Love this. So good. All right. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
No worries. Thank you for having us.